Hey, what's up everyone? As requested by a subscriber, I'm gonna be reviewing Andrew Tate's latest video on the global awakening.
I'm going to give you a plan for the next few years. But before I do that, I think it's important I explain to you the exact situation you're in, as most of you seem to be unaware to the fact that you are actually a slave. You're a slave.
Right. Yes, you are. He says that, but I don't believe that he actually understands what it means based on what he has said in his previous videos, but we'll see.
Inside of a system by which fiat currency controls all of the banking, controls what you do with your life, controls the democracy that you enjoy. Of course, the banks ensure that the people who are voted into power give the banks unlimited power, and it's a cycle into infinity where you end up screwed at the bottom.
That's true, essentially, but it's not that fiat controls anything, because fiat doesn't exist. Money doesn't exist. It's not a physical object. You cannot sense it with any of your senses. You cannot see it, smell it, touch it, anything. That's why it's not exactly correct. These ideas are what control your life and make you into a slave. So you gotta go deeper. This is more surface level thinking.
The fiat currency, which you're so desperate to earn, is simply a form of slavery. In days of old, traditional slavery as you know it, they would take somebody, force them to do a job they don't want to do, give them a house because they needed somewhere to sleep, give them some food because they needed food to eat, and then prevent them from escaping and force them to work. This is actually extremely inefficient. It's hard to stop them escaping, and it's hard to make them do a good job. It's far more efficient to get somebody, force them to do a job they don't want to do in exchange for currency, and that currency is barely enough for them to afford a place to sleep and afford food to eat.
Yes, overall correct. Exactly. You just work. You kind of get enough to buy a gym membership. And he also promotes going to the gym. So he's just the same kind of a slave as most people when it comes to a lot of things. He's very deep in the matrix. But on the surface, he does say some things which are true. Kind of. Again, it's really just surface level truth. And then maybe you buy a PlayStation, go to the cinema sometimes. Yeah, it's just to survive, to live a life in slavery. But even if you would be rich, you would still be a slave. I've reviewed millionaires who eat toast for breakfast. You're a slave because of this. You've been mentally enslaved. You have invisible chains around you. You're not a slave because of money and all of that. That's all on the surface. It's not your actual real problem. There's no such thing as rich or poor people, seeing as there is no money. That's what he doesn't get.
Now you've given them the same things you gave them before, but they're psyoped into believing somehow they're not a slave and they're working for their freedom. The greatest thing about all of this is if the thing they're working for can be printed from thin air, then you can get unlimited people to do unlimited work for free because it's all made up. It's a slave. And then you can print more of this.
Yeah, it's just paper and plastic with symbols on it. And you have been conditioned to see it as money, as something worthy. That also applies to your driver's license, passport, and everything. It's all just paper with symbols on it. It has no value, no meaning, no worth, nothing. It's pointless. It's total bullshit. But you believe that it all has a meaning because you grew up as a slave and you only know the slave life.
Stuff from thin air, and you can use it to ensure that the politicians who will allow you to continue to print it with impunity get into power. And you end up with a position where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer because the currency inflates. All the people who own the assets continue to get filthy rich. The people who do not own the assets will never be able to afford the assets because they get more expensive every single day, and your wages do not go up every single day. That's the basic reality of the life most of you at home are living. You're so depressed and miserable that you gamble effectively. You understand your only way out.
Yeah, and he talks about depression while smoking a cigar with neurotoxins. Yeah, and what kind of a drink is that? From some cans with toxic heavy metals or maybe a plastic lining inside. Yeah, man, that's why you can't take him seriously.
This garbage is just to buy crypto, buy meme coins, become a trader, become a gambler, dump on all the other people around me, use them as exit liquidity. I need to find a way to get rich at other people's expense, because if I try hard to open a business, I'm going to fail, because all of the companies are owned by international conglomerates who will outcompete me. If I work my ass off in a degree in a university, I'll probably end up in a riot or a fight. Even if I manage to avoid that, I get in huge amounts of students' debt to become an engineer, and the engineer wage has gone up 10% in the last 15 years, whereas my food prices have doubled in 2 years. So there's no point in working hard in school anymore. Your only chance is to gamble. That's what you believe. And this system is propagated and based on one massive web of endless deception. They have to divide us all, of course, so we don't unite.
Yeah, it's true that they divide us. In the US, you have the left wing and the right wing people, but they all fight against each other. This is true. It's a very old tactic, but it works. That's why it's old, because it always worked. It still does today. You see footage online of people always fighting each other, even though the people who made up both sides are actually the ones that are causing the trouble.
From a bank, you're borrowing someone else's money. You don't even understand the fractional reserve banking system. You don't understand where all of this currency comes from. You don't really understand truly how imaginary it is. You believe the things they tell you on the news. You believe we have to go bomb innocent farmers who have earned $3 a year for most of their life in some far-flung country that you couldn't point to on a map for your freedom. You believe that. And you believe the Congress needs to pass trillions of dollars to get it done. What's really funny is you believe these politicians work for you. You believe they represent you. You believe when they get into power, they give a shit about the people who put them into power. And that's the only thing that you believe which is correct, because they do give a shit about the people who put them into power. But
Well, maybe he's about to say the same, but obviously you don't actually put them into power. You can vote and you can argue if voting even counts in most countries, but if you want to believe it, sure, maybe it does in some. Maybe they really count your votes, that's possible, but you don't really have a choice anyway. And the people that put them into power are already in power, so to speak. It's an illusion. They don't have any actual power, but because you base your life on ideas, they do. The ideas are what control you, and they are in charge of the ideas. I think he's about to say something like that it's not actually you that puts them into power.
you didn't put them into power. The people with the fiat currency put them into power.
Okay, yes, so he understands that.
And they work for the people who own them. They work for the people they truly represent, and it's never you. Don't you sit and wonder, why do all these politicians, as soon as they get into power, just start voting for things none of their people want? Surely that's fraud. I mean, they're a representative of the people. Well, no, they're not a representative of the people. They're representative of the which own this fiat currency, and they're voting in their interest, not your interest. Which is why no politician ever does any of the things their people seems to want. And if you find one who does, he soon ends up in jail. Funny that. People are losing faith in absolutely everything in real time. You're starting to learn that the justice system is just a weapon for the matrix, where they're going to take subjective laws, which can be used against anybody at any time.
Well, laws are man-made anyway. It's just rules written on a piece of paper or on a screen nowadays. I don't know what he means by subjective. It's just made up anyway.
People they like off the hook, take the people they don't like and put them in jail. The police are going to two-tier police the society. Sometimes they're going to crack skulls. Sometimes they're going to kneel and support, depending which protest is part of the Matrix's agenda. You're starting to understand the medical system, which should be such a pure institution. Doctors who just...
Well, the police just do whatever they are told. They are really just robots, just like the military. They have no thoughts of their own. If they are told to kneel down, they will do it. And if they are told to use force, then they will do it. That's it. There's really no thinking involved.
Everything is corrupt. Everything is fake. And everything is everything. The education system is spending more time trying to turn your kids than teach them the truth about any of these things I'm talking about. Every single thing you see on the news ever is a lie. And if they're lying to you now, they're lying to you about history too. Basically, everything you know about what's happened before you is also a lie. And the big deception, the goal of it all, is to distract you long enough that by the time you work it out, you're too old, you've lost your energy and your spark, you've paid most of your taxes, you've given up most of your life force for this fiat currency, you've been a good slave, then you can die peacefully. As the new generation comes along, perhaps they need new lies, stronger lies, any lie it takes to keep people working. And once you understand all of these things, the only hope at the end of the tunnel is a mass awakening. And here's where I started my video saying I'm going to give you a plan for the next 3 years. It's actually a lifestyle you can adopt forever, but 3 years alone could fix everything. I don't talk to people who don't talk about this. This is all I want to talk about because this is all that matters. If you're talking to people who care about sports teams, who are interested in rap beefs, who are sitting there talking about YouTubers and other bullshit, if you're sitting talking to people who are interested in Netflix shows, if you're dating one of those girls who just wants to have fun and isn't interested in how bad the world is, no, I just want to have fun, I just want to travel. All of these asinine bullshit worldviews collapse as soon as the bad times come, and then they rely on the people who understand how the world really works to fix it for them. I'm not these people's parents. I don't have to fix it for them. If they're uninterested in fixing it for themselves, they can deal with the oncoming tsunami of consequences, and it will land on their head. But anybody who does understand how the world works, or has an interest in finding out, I would like you to unite with the other people who do the same thing, and only speak about this in your leisure for 3 years. That's all you should be talking about. You should be talking about the news that day and how they lied that day, how it's tied to their lies of the past, how the world could be a better place if we operated within God's light, which is truth. And if you removed all of the distractions and bullshit, and when you meet somebody who says, yeah, I go to Coachella, you need to look at them for what they are, which is you're a you have no interest in trying to fend off the slavery which is going to be bestowed upon you and your bloodline.
Yeah, what's also interesting is that whenever something bad happens, so to speak, nobody does anything, but when their favorite football team loses, they go completely nuts and vandalize everything, go through the streets in a large group, and they show everybody how disappointed they are, that they don't approve of what happened. But whenever anything real happens, just nothing, silence, then they sit at home. Yeah.
Want to jump up and down and do drugs because you're a dumbass. And the reason it's actually kind of frustrating to tell the truth in the world is that you understand why the elites think most people deserve to be slaves. When you try to free people's minds, you understand perfectly why the elites believe that most people deserve to be slaves, because a large percentage of people do. They do deserve it. Because they are and they are so easy to distract, and they are cowards, and they are afraid. But this is a hopeful message. I want you to have hope. I want you to understand that right now you are operating at a fraction of your power. You do not say most of the things you think because you're afraid of repercussion. If you say them hidden behind a cartoon account. Like a little.
It's a little bit simplified. Yeah, you can call people names, I suppose, and say that they are not clever enough to understand what's going on. That's why they deserve it. But in reality, it's that you grow up in slavery, in captivity. You're never allowed to do what you want to do. And you're told that natural food is unhealthy, disgusting, and scary. Raw meat and blood. And that's why you're just not the biological being which you're supposed to be. You're not a real man, if we talk about men. Of course, you could also say women are not real women and so on. Point being, you're not really the biological creature which you're supposed to be. That's why you act the way you do. That's why you fall for everything. It wouldn't really be possible to brainwash somebody who would grow up on raw meat. No matter what school system they are part of, how many dumb TV shows they watch, what your parents tell you, the raw meat would simply take over. It would be too strong. So we are dealing with malnourished people essentially in the first place. And yeah, I guess that you can argue and say that they deserve it, but it's just too simple.
You're going through life having ingenuine interactions with people, pretending to listen to their opinions, talking to people who have no interest in trying to resist the oncoming slavery, and your soul is bombarded and under attack. I am encouraging you to be honest. That's all I want you to do for the next 3 years. To talk about the important subjects, to educate yourself, to only talk to people who give a shit, to anybody prepared to learn, educate them so they can realize just how big this scam is. When somebody tries to tell you they went to Coachella, tell them they're a drug-taking Look her right in her eyes, that's 7, who thinks she's cool, and say, you're a nobody. Nobody gives a shit that you went to Coachella. You're and you're the kind of person which makes it easy for the elites to enslave us all. You're a dumbass. You're not spiritual. You're not free.
Okay, I do like this part. Yeah, he is right that this is what people should be doing, more or less. You should be always speaking your mind, and you should honestly tell people what you think, share your beliefs. I don't necessarily agree that you should only talk to people who share the same beliefs, who want to talk about these topics. You should just say that to everybody. But if they say that they don't want any contact with you anymore, even if it's your family members, then who cares? You're just talking about a topic. If the topic offends them that much, what kind of a friendship was that? What kind of a family member is that? That's bullshit then anyway. Then it's not even worth interacting with them. But at least try. So I don't agree that you should just talk to people who share your own beliefs. You're just gonna be talking in a circle, so to speak. Also speak to people outside of the circle.
You're not cool. You're a dumbass. Explain to me how money works. I just get it off men. Yeah, OnlyFans. You're a loser. Make it clear. You can be the bad guy. Says in Batman. He's not the person everybody wanted, but he's...
In Batman, Batman is the bad guy. Naturally speaking, Batman is the one who works together with the police, enslaving everybody. Same goes for Superman, Spider-Man, because they help to enslave humanity. In case you don't understand, you've been going through very severe brainwashing since you were a child, and you've been told the opposite of the truth your whole life. Your whole life view is upside down. Everything has been twisted, and that's why you believe that Batman, Spider-Man, Superman are the good guys. They are the worst guys. They are anti-nature enslavers. They are the super police. Superman is the super police. They are there to keep you in captivity. And this is who you worship because you're unaware. I don't know what Tate is about to say now.
The person everybody needs. Be the bad guy. Let everyone think you're crazy. It's fine. In the end, you're right. Be a man on it. Stand on it. Yeah, I'm crazy. We'll talk in 5 years. Time proves you right in the end. Just relax and tell the truth. I'm encouraging everybody to only talk about things that actually matter, to not allow themselves to be distracted, and to wake up as many minds as possible because, and here's the hopeful part of the message, we still have the power. The elites lied to us, but there is more of us than them. And they can only get away with what we accept. They only get away with things because we allow them to get away with them. The day they tell a huge lie and the majority of people say, you're lying, no, the power returns to our hands. They cannot make us do anything unless the majority of people do it without questioning it. So it's extremely important now, in this pivotal period in human history, before artificial intelligence comes along, rewrites every book from the past, rewrites the present, and plans out the future. Before artificial intelligence has you believing, if you take that dildo out your butt, you're going to die. Because that's what's coming. As this empire falls, a tech empire will be born. And that's scary. As before, as empires fell, a new empire of man came to replace it. The new empire that's coming perhaps will be more heinous, more controlling, and more powerful than ever before. These will be seen as a few short years in human history where you had a chance to instill the awakening in the human mind which was required to preserve the human spirit. Because I promise you, there's a time in the future where there's no human spirit left. Just people sitting there with their Apple Vision Pros off by themselves. That's perhaps coming. But we, as creatures true to God, should do our very best to delay that for as long as possible. So, tell the truth all the time. Remind only speak about the issues that matter.
Tell the truth all the time. Yeah. Speak your mind. That's what the second point really is. It's all the same, really. It's all about being as open as you can be. Okay, overall the message is not bad. It's just that he doesn't really understand how the slave system works. Still, I'm surprised that I kind of agree with the conclusion.
Speak to other people who speak about those issues. And
no, speak to other people who don't speak about those issues, especially. That's the most important part.
Speak to people who are prepared to learn. Because a global awakening of consciousness.
Yeah, you speak to them, and then if they don't listen to you or walk away, then you did your job. Yeah, what else can you do? Of course you don't run after them or whatever, but you still have to try. How would you know if anybody is going to listen to you anyway? You can't really tell.
All we need is the world to give a shit and pay attention for a few short years to learn truthfully how badly they've been scammed, to work out why they can't afford groceries, to understand why they can't pay the rent, to understand why the politicians don't ever do any of the things they're supposed to do, to understand why everything on the news is a lie, to understand who they can actually trust, to understand you can love your neighbor. Through this mass awakening, they will have to stop lying. They will have to start telling the truth. And I promise you, the day that happens, the world will become a better place.
All right. I agree with the conclusion. I agree with what he said we should be doing for the global awakening. That's not what I would call it, but whatever. An awakening would be humans actually realizing that they are supposed to be eating raw meat, drinking blood, that they should be reproducing, that they shouldn't be afraid of the sun, that the sun is essentially God. They should eliminate all religions, which are the biggest mind cage there is. It manipulates you more than anything else. They would have to realize that morals, ethics come from religions, that everything that you believe is bad is actually good, it's all upside down, and so on. That would be a true awakening of the human spirit. It's when humans would really connect to nature and this reality. What he's talking about is kind of realizing that you're a slave for money, but he doesn't even understand that money doesn't exist, that it's just an idea anyway, that it's not a physical object. That's not really gonna help you much. You would just build a new system based on money again, if you don't realize that money doesn't exist. So that's not gonna help. Yeah, realizing that we are being divided is good again, but you don't understand that this social construct that we have, the society, cannot naturally work anyway. Therefore, you would just probably build a new system based on ideas with two sides can be 3 or 4, but realizing that the whole system doesn't work at all is what should happen if you would experience an awakening. Yeah, everything that he talks about is really on the surface. That's why he believes that you can become rich and get out of the matrix. The matrix is the money which was implanted in your head. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist. It's an idea. You would have to get out of that. You cannot get rich. There are no rich or poor people. That's impossible. Realizing that it's impossible to get rich or to be poor, that would be an actual awakening. He doesn't talk about any of that. I don't think that his videos are really gonna help anybody. The only actual good recommendation that he gave is that you should be always speaking your mind. You should honestly tell people what you're thinking about. Except that, of course, you shouldn't only talk to people who also talk about that. As I said, then you're going to be talking in a circle, always to the same people. Just talk to everybody. I know that it's hard, because if at your workplace you start talking about eating raw meat, even being in the sun, which should be common sense, but that's kind of strange nowadays almost in some places, then you're going to be looked at weirdly, and then they may talk to your boss, and you could even get fired for simply sharing your opinion because of how little free speech there is in this society that we live in our heads. The society doesn't exist, of course. It's all an illusion. Still, yes, if you would do that, if you would actually understand how the system works, then that would help. That's a good recommendation. That would help if you would actually understand how the system works. Seeing as Andrew himself doesn't understand that, and he's not going to be able to teach anybody anything about the system because of that, that's not actually really going to help. It's a good recommendation to speak your mind, to tell everybody what you think, but it's not gonna work because he doesn't understand how the system works and he cannot teach anybody how the system works. Therefore, through his videos, through his teachings, there's not gonna be an awakening. Thanks for watching.